You are being recorded.
Good evening. I would like to call this meeting of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee to order. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Your image and or voice may be broadcast. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start out with public comment and communications, and then we will approve the consent agenda. And then Al is going to take over, because tonight we are going to vote on the chair and the vice chair, and we actually need to re-vote on the district clerk and the assistant treasurer. We're going to probably table appointment of subcommittees so people have time to think about what they want to do. Okay, so just a few things before I get into public comment. I just want to say welcome to Beth. Thank you for joining, and yeah. It's a lot, so just take it in stride, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Usually we have a mentor for new people, so we can talk offline about who would be the best fit to be your mentor. And then that would be the person that you would go to with questions and hopefully try to meet with every so often.
Okay. Congratulations to Lisa and Megan for getting moved.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah,
And we'll have a nameplate for you by the next week. We did honor it.
and Matt as well. Yeah.
And Matt, yes, sorry, yes.
Yep, and we have a new, we have our student rep here tonight, so lots of changes. We have a new student rep, his name is Matthew Dowd, so he will be speaking later on. And one other thing I want to say before we get started is I really want to thank everyone that came out and voted, because we had a huge turnout in both towns, and I just think that's great that people are getting involved in something that really affects everybody in the towns, right? The school district is very important. Okay, so without further ado, we'll jump right into public comments. Is anyone here to make a public comment? You can just state your name and where you're from.
Sure. Christina Kelko Medeiros, and I'm from Boylston. So I wanted to thank Megan and the superintendent. What I was here to talk about, you guys have already added it to the agenda, which is amazing. Thank you for doing that so swiftly. I have kiddos that are coming up into middle school. One there now, one's going to be there next year. So as a parent, naturally, I'm starting to look at options for them, what kind of courses, like what are their interests and things like that. So when I sort of dug deeper, I, as well as a few other parents that I've talked to, I think we all assumed that there are a multitude of options for the kids, right? They can come here, they can do out of district, they can go to Assabet, and when I was looking at this, it's my understanding that Boylston doesn't get to participate in the lottery to go to Assabet. And I know the lottery, I guess, is fairly new, based on a law that the state passed in 2001 for various reasons, for fairness and things like that. But I didn't know that Berlin students had the chance. So as a middle school parent, that sort of concerns me, because obviously I want as many options for my kid as possible, right? And they're not all going to be fit for academics. Some are going to want hands-on. They're going to want to go into trades or whatnot. So I'm glad that you guys are going to talk about it today. I'm here to listen to that discussion because I'm very interested in it. I have done some research, and just for other parents who may be watching this or listening, I know that Assabet is pretty much at capacity. So even if we are in what we call, I guess, a secondary town, which would afford our kiddos an opportunity in Boylston, a chance to go there, it's my understanding that they only took primary town students last year for admission, because they just don't have the spots. And it's across the board. We're seeing kids more interested in wanting these types of skills and things. Even if they plan on going to college, they really want to work in engineering. and technology, and all of that can start in the high school. So there's just kids that want to go to these technical high schools. So for my kids, I have a bunch. I have kids that are probably go straight to college, and then I have other kids that are probably going to want to do robotics or whatnot. So it concerns me that the Boylston kids don't really have as much of a chance as the Berlin kids. And even the Berlin kids are probably, they're getting less and less spots as we go on. There was something in the news recently about Shrewsbury and Leicester. They're partnering even, they've been dealing with the last 4 years, just now realizing that they have so many students that even ASAVID wouldn't be able to accommodate them. So they're even starting their own vocational programming, which is probably, not something that Boylston can do on its own. So I think we really have to think about the next, kids in 6th grade right now, by the time that they're going to go to high school. We really need to make sure that the kids now have options. I know ASAVID is growing. They've said they're going to grow. They're looking at investing, but that's like a 10-year, 15-year plan. They're going to build new buildings. They'll be able to take more kids, but what do we do about the kids that are in school now? So I'm hoping that you guys will have a good discussion today. I know there's lots of parents that are going to be interested in this because their kids are starting to come into middle school and they're going to want to explore these types of options. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, so for communications, I did receive several emails kind of echoing what Christina said about why doesn't Boylston have a solid option for a vocational school, but Berlin has this relationship with ASAVID. It's not fair, it's not equitable, what happened? So I did put that in my chair's report tonight, and I know Al and I have discussed it, and he's going to weigh in, and so we'll wait until we get to that. But I did have more emails, I think, from parents kind of questioning that, and I think it kind of came to when, to Christina's point, when it was in the news about the Shrewsbury and the Leicester, the new vocational school that they're starting, which is amazing. All right. Did anyone else have any other communications?
Yeah, so Al and I went to the conference, the Mass Association of School Committees and Mass Association of Superintendents. And one of the lunchtime talks was a dignity index, and so I grabbed all the extras on the tables. But some schools have it as kind of their way to talk to each other, and some of them have just 5 and above. So I just thought it was really important that I got all for us, and that maybe you consider it to be something school-wide, but to talk with civility and dignity to each other and separate the subject from the person. So I want to do that. And then also I got
Do you want to pass those around?
Yeah. I also got chart of parliamentary motions too. That I'll pass around to the Roberts rules. And then I just also want to congratulate VES. Matt Meekum and Megan and Superintendent had a lot of work on the accelerated repair project from MSBA, and I read online that it was accepted for VES route. So that's amazing work. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. This is very helpful.
It's a fantastic conference, and I'll try to sum up and have it on the future agenda going into MCAS tonight. But there was really good topics, and kind of for your report later on last year, there was a Blackstone collaborative session, and it was area schools that got together and did evening and weekend programs to offer their kids kind of little mini trades, so to speak.
And we could talk a little bit more about that one on the agenda item. It is definitely, there's a lot to talk about. And I worked with Worcester Technical when they were moving that forward, so it will be a good conversation to have later on the agenda. Look forward to it.
So thank you for attending that. This is great that you were able to make it down there. Okay, any other communications? Okay, consent agenda. Could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Laurie and Jess, any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. I'm an aye as well. That motion passes. Okay, next up, we are going to move forward with the chair and vice chair. So the way it works is somebody nominates somebody for these positions, and then we vote. So I think there was one other thing. I said district clerk, and I said assistant treasurer, but I think, Jess, you had mentioned there was a position, like a liaison with the MASC.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yes, the MASC delegate.
Delegate.
So, on Friday afternoon, there was a 2-hour session of different items that were being voted on, and so every committee designates a delegate, and then you vote on those topics. So some of us got it in the mail, but, and so there are different resolutions that are voted on and amended and put forth to the state legislation to try to pass those. So I just went and listened. So that's something that we should appoint for the next year around.
So if we appoint a delegate, then that person would be able to vote on behalf of BBRSD on these certain things.
Yeah, so we would have a discussion prior to the
It would be on our-
conference
yep.
And, go over the different topics and say how one wants to vote, or if there was an amendment you'd want to put forward, or.
And just through the chair, those resolutions, so what we've done in the past, Aaron and I actually, in Hampton Wilbraham, is we go through those resolutions, we appoint a delegate ahead of time, right? So they're going to represent us down at the MASC conference. We look at the resolutions, and by the way, the resolutions aren't binding, right? They're just getting feedback from the different school committees, how they feel. We literally spend the meeting reading them over. People are giving their input. They then give like how they should vote, whether a yes or a no or whatever their resolution is. And then this way, then that delegate takes that information. They're not voting for themselves, they're voting for the school committee and giving that information to pass it forward. And again, they're just resolutions, just getting a feedback. Any school committee could put a resolution and say, hey, I'd like to get some feedback from other school committees in the state of Massachusetts, how they feel about this. But it's definitely something we should be looking at before the next one comes next year.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa and I didn't even know anything about it. And I was like, oh, you're going, you're the delegate? I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Laurie wanted to say something.
So I just wanted to, I remember we had, I don't know, I think Mike was on the committee at the time. I think maybe Angela had gone as our representative, and we voted, specifically one of the votes was, should students that are age 16 or older have the right to vote in local elections? And I believe the committee was split down the middle, so our delegate didn't vote for that one, but that's
Sure.
exactly how we did it. We met as a committee, talked about the what they'd be voting on, and then we voted, and then our delegate represented us.
And it's good to have a delegate there, just so when you check in, right, it's very organized. Okay, what district are you representing? So they check off that yes, you have it. So with us not having a delegate or representing us there officially is something we want to try to avoid in the future.
Okay, so I'm wondering, do we want to appoint that? So maybe we don't appoint that now, because what if, for whatever reason, the person can't go to the conference next year? Then that
That's right.
is totally, so maybe we wait until next fall, and we have that something on the September agenda. We start looking at anything we want to move, and then we figure out like who's going to go. I know you went 2 years in a row, Jess. Like, I don't know. It's a lot to have to go down the Cape for a long weekend, but somebody else, maybe a few people want to go next year, whatever. Maybe Beth, I don't know.
It's
so
good,
maybe
but it's long.
It's right, exactly. Maybe you're like, no, I've done it 2 years in a row. I don't want to go. So I kind of want to hold off on appointing or voting on that. But I just wanted to like put it out there and keep it on the back burner for something that will have to be appointed. Whether we do it at the end of the year or whether we do it in September for the following year. All right. So then, without further ado, does everyone agree on that? Maybe hold off so we know, so we're not obligating someone a year in advance to go to a conference.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. So without further ado, all right, Al's going to take over.
So this is the one time that superintendents enjoy the most. It's the moment of time where they completely control these meetings. The only thing that I'm going to do for them is do the chair. And then after the chair is appointed, then they'll go forward. The chair will then go forward and move the vice chair and go forward. The other thing you just need to be aware of, that we have a little thing in hand over, you can nominate yourself as well. So at this point, I'm looking for anyone that would like to nominate someone to nominate themselves for chair of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District chairperson. Do I have any nominations?
Can I make a motion
Yes.
to nominate Jessica Declan to the chair?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Do I have any other nominations for chair of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee?
Can I make a nomination?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Michael Topman.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Can I second?
Yep.
Or Lisa did.
Yep, got 2 seconds. Okay, great. Any other nominations for chair of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee? Okay, so I have 2 nominations. I have Jessica and I have Mike. At this point, we'll just go around and do our votes. Okay, if we want to start off, Lisa. So you're either choosing Jessica.
So we just say the name?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I'm going to choose Mike.
Choose Michael. Sorry, Mike.
Yes, I'll choose myself.
I know this sounds corny, but this is the way it's just protocol. That's all. Nick.
I will choose Mike. I will choose Mike.
Choose myself.
I will choose Jessica.
So I have a 4-2 vote. So Mike is our new chairperson of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee. Congratulations, Mike.
Can we switch seats?
Yep. You want to switch seats? Or you want? Okay, I'm going to move this over
We got
to.
limited time on the recording, so.
All right, okay,
Yeah,
all right, let's do it.
congratulations.
Just keep rolling. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
If I can find the agenda. So,
You're going to look for us.
yep. All right, so same thing. Any nominations for the vice chair?
I'd like to
You
nominate,
nominate- sorry.
I'd like to nominate Megan,
Okay, second?
since she knows how to run meetings.
Second. I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay.
I will second that.
Any others? All right, Lisa,
Megan?
Megan,
I'll vote for myself.
Lori,
I'm going to vote for Megan.
Jess, Beth.
Jeff.
I will also vote for Megan. So, Megan is the vice chair. As far as appointment to subcommittees or voting on subcommittees, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but with everything going on tonight, Beth being new, why don't we leave subcommittees status quo right now, and then if you are happy on the subcommittee you're on, you want to change, or you're interested in something, Beth, if you're interested in working on any particular one, let's talk about it over the next few weeks, and at the December meeting, we'll go through and organize those. Does that work for everybody?
My only concern is the contract is going to be coming up.
We have, Lori and I have been working on that as the negotiations subcommittee. We met informally with some reps, had a good conversation with them. We're going to be talking more about that later tonight.
Through the chair, Nicole, do we have a listing like what it all entails of being each one of these subcommittees so that people then, so she can have an idea of what they're all?
I probably have something somewhere
Great.
from back in the day that I can get out.
There was
Just-
something in the handbook that gave like a synopsis.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just so you know what
Yeah.
we're flying into before you go into it. Great.
Beth, if you read the annual report,
Oh, okay.
Yep, I believe it's in there, kind of what each.
Yeah, so subcommittees are policy negotiations, student success and technology, budget,
Budget.
and
And superintendent, no.
superintendent evaluation, right? Pretty self-explanatory what they work on. But yeah, we can reorganize everything in December or leave them as they are. Beth, let me know what you're interested in working on. Julie was on the budget subcommittee, so there's only one person currently on that. But we can figure that out in December.
And we can make new ones, right?
We could make new ones, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, actually, one of the meetings I asked if there was examples of like typical subcommittees, so I have that email from them.
Yeah, let's talk about that too. The only thing I would ask, just because it is time sensitive, Megan, would you replace me on the superintendent search committee?
Yes.
Because I know Lori, you've got some information that you're going to need to get going on.
Yep,
And that's Jess, Lori, and Megan.
sure, yeah.
Okay. Back to our report. So our student rep, Matt Dow.
Oh, that's me.
You're up. You say so.
Alrighty. So I just have like a list of like things that have been going on that I just want to like run through, I guess. So I'll start off with our student council, our high school student council events. So we've held since the beginning of the year. We've had a couple of events. We have like 6th grade orientation, homecoming, our haunted hallway. And so far, all of our events this year have actually gone really well. We've been raising a good amount of money for our student council, which is great because that money all just gets recycled into making our student hope events better. Our food drive, I believe, is probably going to start tomorrow. We have our Thanksgiving food drive every year. Food goes either to the food shelter, and also there are a couple of DeHanto families that we put together Thanksgiving dinners for. So it always goes well. In the past, we've always raised a lot, so hopefully it'll be the same this year. Ace Club was just a club I wanted to highlight real quick, because we were thinking about this one. It's a really great club for student mentoring. So high school students, such as myself, meet normally once a week to either tutor, help study for a test, help with homework for any middle or high school student. I believe it was, I forget exactly when we started. I think it might have been a couple of years ago. 3 years. That's right. 3 years ago we started this. And it's been going really well. We have a lot of kids that come every week to just, get a little extra help on something. And we are also trying to think of ways to maybe even move it to elementary schools. The new lunch menu, this is a big item for the students. As far as I hear, everyone really loves the new lunches. They're really, there's a lot of options and they're all really good tasting. And as well as the breakfast too. The breakfasts are really awesome. I know myself, I get breakfast at school every single day because I do not have time in the morning to grab something to eat. So lunches, new food menu, really great. Sports. So we had last year, the class of 2024, when they graduated, they had a lot of student athletes. So our sports teams are in a growing year, really, but they've been, regardless of that, they've been doing really well. So our girls varsity soccer team won the Central Mass Championships, and tonight they are playing in the round 8 of the Mass tournament. I think it's 6:30, so hopefully they'll do well tonight. I think our football team is a couple of games away from going to the Super Bowl again. I mean, that would be awesome if we did a three-peat, so we can hope. The Booster Club's been highlighting the senior athletes during home games, which is really great. And then I titled this section, General Student Experience. So I wanted to say, as far as I know, everything is going really great, I think. I really wanted to highlight the fact that our staff and our teachers are phenomenal. Every teacher I've ever known here has been extremely understanding and also enthusiastic about their job, which I think is really important when you have a teacher that wants to be a teacher, because it makes a big difference for the students. And one note here is school spirit. So this is sort of our job on student council, which is to try and increase our school spirit. And I will say this year has actually been going pretty well on that. We're always trying to get students more involved with the community, but this year is definitely one of the better years out of the past for that. Should I mention this now too? Okay, so I had this little idea that Ms. Sequeira tells me is a really good idea, so I'm going to say about it. I was thinking, because I was asking around some of my other student friends, and I was asking them basically, how much do you know about what happens at a school committee meeting? And most of them gave roughly the same answer of, I don't really know what happens at a school committee meeting. So I was thinking, as the student rep, if I could just type up little bullet-pointed headlines of what happens here at the school committee meeting that would be of interest to students. So most students probably aren't going to care too much about the boring, the business parts of things, but there are definitely things I'm sure that happen that the students will have opinions about. And so I was thinking if I could just type up quick bullet point headlines to send out in I know DeHanto has the Stags Weekly, stuff like that, just so that way the students kind of have an idea of what's going on in school committee meetings.
Excellent.
Love it. Great
Anybody have
idea.
any questions?
Can't wait to see it.
Excellent.
Nice job.
Okay.
What happens during haunted hallway?
So haunted hallway, we take, normally it's the math wing. So if you're looking, it's that wing up on the second floor right there. And we ask all the teachers in that wing if we can basically take their rooms and decorate them into a haunted house. So each room gets a different theme. So like, one room is like a doll, like a scary doll house, or there's like spider rooms or whatever it is. And then we have the student council members and who dress up in scary costumes. And it's honestly probably our biggest fundraiser of the year for student council. Where people will line up, they go through the haunted hallway, and then there's normally a couple other things. So I think we have, I think there's normally an art show that the art club puts on.
Band.
The band plays, and then the bonfire. That's my favorite part. That's out on the field. We have a big bonfire with pallets in the fire department. So.
The hallway is chaos in a good way.
It's legitimately scary. It's very,
It was
it's
chaos
real
in a
scary.
good way. Chaos, though.
This year's was really good. We put it together.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you run that as a fundraiser?
Yeah. So the haunted hallway, that's our fundraiser one of our fundraisers for student council.
It's a charge per run. through the
Yeah,
hallway.
I think we normally charge
Like
like
a ticket fee or something?
yeah.
Cool.
And kids went through it multiple times.
They
They
go.
go shot.
Yeah, they go through.
It's not one cover all. It's like each time you went
No,
through, it
they
was
pay
like
every
a
time.
challenge.
They keep going.
Yeah.
Like, it's-
I usually hijack a small child so they go easy.
They don't. They don't.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
The ACE Club is really great. You would think, once you get up to the high school level, that being peer tutored, there's some resistance from a high school kid wanting to be tutored by someone their own age, but the kids do a really great job of doing it with them, making them feel like they're doing their homework together, like they're studying. They just do a really nice job. I was hesitant about it, and they do a great job.
I appreciate that. I'm the president of ACE Club this year, and so I will say I've had a lot of students say that it's like sometimes it's just like hearing it from someone else that can help someone like get the idea of what they're learning. But it's definitely I've definitely heard a lot of positive feedback, which is why I'm happy to continue to try and make it bigger.
Yeah.
Thanks. Next is the chair's report, and so Megan, since this is all your information, why don't you take this one?
Okay. So first off, FY25 calendar. So we had one parent reach out, and a lot of people informally kind of complain about the quantity of half days. It's no secret. It's causes a little bit of lack of routine. I know it's difficult for the parents, and the reason why we did it, I think, was Carol had said, it was something the union wanted, and the whole reason why the school committee was behind it is because we felt that the added PD time would hopefully help improve scores and improve the whole experience for the students. So somebody had asked if there was even an option to change the calendar in midway through the year. And so I spoke with Al about it, and the answer to that question is absolutely not. We have bus contracts, food contracts, teacher contracts. There's too much that's already in place.
Professional learning that's already lined up.
Yeah, stuff that's already paid
PDPs
for.
that teachers are going to be receiving for the professional learning, that'll be the thing that they need for the recertification. So I know that I've heard some concerns as well too about the half days. What I can tell you is the calendar needs to stay as it is right now with all of our contracts and play with it. But we're already meeting, I think our first meeting is actually this Thursday, right, that we're meeting to work on the calendar. So we'll be able to give that to you very soon for not only next year, but the year after as well too. And we're taking into account all of this information, but we're also going to be sending a survey out to families as well too, saying, hey, what do you think about this? Because we're hearing from some, but we want to hear from everybody what they're feeling about this as well too. But please know that we're hearing it, and we're taking that into account as we're creating next year and the year after this calendar, that we're going to hope to get to you very soon, either January or early February, so you have a calendar that you can vote on for the next 2 years.
Right. And I think it's just finding that happy compromise, because we don't want to devalue the PD and that time for teachers, but at the same point in time, it needs to be a little bit more consistent and not as random with like the Wednesday, half day on a Wednesday, and this half day, and then 3 days later a vacation and stuff like that. So a little bit more thoughtful maybe on placement of the PD days.
And that will be helpful to us even when we're starting negotiations with the bus companies, right? So that's all
Right.
about to bid. So all of that information will be helpful to us. We need to have that calendar set so when we're sitting down and having those conversations with them.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is the vocational education options for Boylston. So we've had a lot of people come forth and kind of say it's not fair. So the way it works currently is I believe Berlin students have, they're like a tier 1, or they have a direct line to Assabet, where if a student that lives in the town of Berlin, even though they go to Tonto, wants to go to Assabet, they have a leg up over the Boylston kids that want to go. And I believe what happened in the past is before we regionalized, I think Assabet wasn't as busy. And I think what happened was Boylston didn't have to pay to be a tier 1 school or whatever category it was. So I was trying to rack my brain and look back in the minutes and see what happened. I know Jeff explained this to us. It would just be me, Laurie, and Mike. But I couldn't find it, and I can't remember.
I believe state law changed.
Yes,
Something within
that's
the
in
state
2021,
changed.
correct.
So you had to pay into, I don't know if it's called a consortium or what it's called.
Collaborative.
Collaborative. Berlin pays into that. Boylston does not. And in the past, it used to be a system where it was based on merit. And what they found was, just to give an example, Berlin was paying money that goes towards like the roof and everything else. Boylston wasn't. All of Berlin's kids weren't getting in. Some of Boylston's were. So it was a fairness. The state did it out of fairness. So the rules changed, and therefore we had to adapt. And as you pointed out, Assabet is getting fuller and fuller and fuller. So even though we might have some Boylston kids accepted, say, first couple weeks of September, they're at capacity with even the towns that they have. But it was because I believe the state had changed the way it was done for equity reasons because of the people that were paying into it.
Okay, and that makes sense. But what I remember was that there was no way that, it wasn't that, yes. Do you remember Jeff explaining
Yes.
that to us? I don't know why. So we hear you. We think it is not fair. It's not right. And the district, I'm challenging the district, or, we can talk about it as a committee, but I think we want the district to look into this. And I spoke with Al, and it sounds like he's already got a plan in place, so I'll let you.
So just a couple things, and just to clarify, so in my knowledge base is with Worcester Technical High School, learning more about Assabet. I mean, my extent of Assabet right now is I take a night class there myself on Monday nights, but that place is booming there. And we had an opportunity this past week to sit with the superintendents for the vocational technical high schools that are there as well, too, so that was really informative. The other thing you need to know is it's a different mindset now. So kids that graduate from Worcester Technical High School, 95% of them go off to colleges and universities. They don't want them just to be plumbers or electricians. They want them to be able to own the business so they can manage the plumbing and electrical business as well, too. So the majority of those kids now go off to colleges and universities. So I'm a little behind on the whole Assabet thing in terms of Berlin-Boylston. I had a meeting today with Greg Picarello. Did I pronounce his last name right? So him and I are going to be meeting with Lauren Gonzalez, who oversees the Assabet program, so we can find out a little bit more. My understanding right now is that Berlin does get some seats, right? Boylston get to apply there, but they're sort of in a different grouping. And this is my really overview of my understanding of this. I'll feel a little bit better, and I'll continue to keep this on our agenda. But after I meet with Lauren and Greg, and we'll get a better understanding of how we can get Boylston students to be able to participate in this. It is an unbelievable opportunity for us kids to give them choices, right? And this is something we really want to work on with our kids. And the other piece about that, which we can look at down the road, and Lisa and I and Renee and Rich have already had a little bit of conversations about creating pathways as well too. So if our kids can't get into technical high schools, right, we don't want to call them vocational, they're called moving towards technical high schools, that the thing we really want to be looking at is what type of pathways are we creating for our kids that don't get into these technical high schools. What do we do in terms of health, business, so that kids can start having an understanding of where they want to go and have a feel for it before they apply to college and universities. But this is the way to go, right? We need to give our kids opportunities. I apologize for not knowing as much as I should, but I will, after I have these meetings, I'll have a better understanding and see how we can get more Boylston kids being able to participate in this type of program as well. That's my limited knowledge. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it, and it's great that you have a meeting, and this is something that was kind of just came up, and I think the reason why it came up was because Shrewsbury and Leicester are coming together, and they have this new technical high school that they're going to share. And I know a lot of people have questioned, can we be a part of that? So I mean, I don't know if that's something we can look into. It sounds like at this point, it's not something we're going to do right now, right? But maybe something we can look into and see if they're accepting other towns. And if the whole Aspet thing doesn't work out, can Boylston get in with another technical high school? So that at least there is an option.
So I'm going to ask the chair if this is going to be a reoccurring agenda item, because I think this is a conversation that we need to keep covering.
We're working on through the, and that's all I wanted to do was kind of get it out there and just like put it out to the committee so that everybody's aware. And instead of, 2-3 years ago, it was presented as like, there's nothing you guys can do about it, it is what it is. No, like, let's not accept that. Let's see if there's something else we can do, and let's look at other options out there, because it really is an inequity.
If you ever doubt about technical schools, I'll take you through a tour not only of the Assabet, but Worcester Technical High School. It's an incredible opportunity for kids to have. And it's just, we need to be given, so all kids learn differently, right? Universal design for learning, right? Not everyone does well by standing and having it delivered to them from a teacher, but being able to have that hands-on is incredible for our kids. And anyone that goes to Assabet or Worcester Tech, they still have to pass the MCAS, they still have to graduate, but they're doing it in half the amount of time, because half it they're in the classroom, half it they're doing their trade. So it's an incredible opportunity for our kids.
Yeah, Al, as far as making it a standing item on the agenda, definitely, and that's an example of just what are we doing at the school committee, right? It's parents who have a thought about one thing, come in and tell us and talk to us instead of, I think this started on social media, but it doesn't go anywhere unless someone comes in and actually brings it to the committee's attention. Instead of, going through other ways, come in here and now we will do this because there seems like there's interest. If we don't know there's interest, we have other things that we need to focus on.
And also, through chair, like, they might have interest, and we're all sitting, everyone around this table saying, yes, this is something we should be involved in, right? This is real important for us, important for our kids. So at least get us a seat at the table with Assabet, and at least let them know what Boylston is interested in having this take place. It's a great opportunity, if it happens.
So Job Corps was at the conference again, and so you can have dual enrollment your senior year of high school. So that I think is a really good, valid option. And we could have them come and present their program to us. I got the card of someone I know actually that's in that program. And then also Mass Academy for math and science is another option for our students junior and senior year. And I know some students have gone in the past. Someone, a friend of mine went and really loved it, but it's the senior year, you're essentially doing WPI classes. But you still do sports with Honda. So
That program is incredible. They get their freshman year in WPI as well too. I think they take 15 kids a year throughout the entire state. So but it's not for every kid, right? It's not for every kid. So it's got to be, my son got accepted and it lasted about 2 weeks. It just wasn't for him, right? Instead, I paid for UConn afterwards as well too. But it's not for all. It's not for all kids, right? But it is an incredible opportunity. And making sure for our guidance counselors that they know that they're available for our kids as well too. Yeah, it's a great program.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Megan. Aaron, you're up.
Alrighty. So a couple things I wanted to just start by sharing with you. With sort of 2 weeks in, I've been kind of looking at things and prioritizing things and kind of making sure that things are operating. So just a few highlights to what's going on, some of my priorities. The very first thing is I want to make sure that payroll is operating, and I have to say that Patty Sponsberg has done, I honestly may have just mispronounced her last name, sorry Patty, but she's done a fabulous job of getting payroll in order in a very short amount of time. We do have a few small sort of outstanding concerns, but those have all largely been taken care of, and we're working on those items that remain. We are working to close out the fiscal 24 school year. District does need to submit some annual reports to the state. There's a matter of reconciling a few accounts from the summer. We're having a lot of success matching our records to Destin state reporting. We did add the accounts receivable module to Infinite Visions, which is our accounting system For whatever reason, the district did not have the accounts receivable module, which meant that all receivables were being posted using journal entries, which you can do almost anything using journal entries, but it's not the most efficient and effective means of doing so. So we'll be working on configuring and training on that December 6th and December 9th so that we can make that more efficient. We also now have an accounts payable and receivable coordinator, Arnold Cerizzo. He started work this morning, so he's got a lot of sort of ramp-up work. He started work today. He's kind of organizing the space, getting through some of the paperwork that's kind of been sitting there for a little while. And then we are working on the fiscal 25 budget reconciliation process. I'm working with Dan Deedy to reconcile the fiscal 25 budget so it reflects the school committee's wishes relative to assessments. We'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute. And I'm working on a pro forma fiscal 26 budget. I'll be reviewing that tomorrow, particularly the payroll portion, the staffing portion tomorrow morning in our admin meeting, and sharing some information with principals to start looking at and adjusting. So, I also want to say that, Dan Deedy in his limited time here really did a lot to kind of get things going, get payables moving, obviously hiring Patty, which was a great move. So kudos to him for that. I really appreciate him. So going into the Berlin and Boylston assessments. So, we have this sort of question about exactly what the budget and assessment should look like to the towns. There seems to be a bit of discrepancy between what, say, Berlin, Boylston, the school committee believes. And so what we're looking for is maybe a little discretion, a little direction from the school committee right now. So we'd like to start working on putting together sort of that budget and making sure it's clear what the school committee voted and what they intend to vote. So with that said, there are really a couple ways we can go. So one is to go with the higher assessment amount. That is what we had, I think, what at least Boylston felt had been put forward. And then, or we could look at the lower model, which would then obviously adjust the budget downward somewhat, or cause us to have to readjust the budget to meet those needs. So I guess I'd be looking for some direction with what the school committee would like us to do. Would you like us to build a budget around sort of the higher assessment amounts or the lower assessment amounts?
When you say higher versus lower, what's that? Is that from town meeting or is that something different?
So, yes, so the higher assessment amounts were voted at town meeting, but it seems somewhere in the process there were assessments, particularly that went to the towns that were, assessment layers that went to the towns at lower levels. I don't know exactly how that played out. I believe the school committee talked about a reduced budget that would then reduce the assessments, but I don't know if the school committee actually voted that budget.
Do you want me to?
So it's, it says a vote if needed. I think that's up to the school committee. What the
We need a
school
vote.
committee would like to do.
Yeah.
We spoke with Desi, we need a vote.
Yeah, what I recall is we agreed something with the finance committee and select board minutes before meeting.
Mhm.
Somebody, somewhere, there was a mistake made motioning that to the town meeting. So a different number was voted at the town meeting, which turned out to be higher than the number we agreed to. So, what is that? So, yeah, we have to vote on something. But if we vote to not accept the town's number, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the town?
So we spoke with Desi about this. Fortunately, it was before Aaron started. I don't know if you got filled in, but we did have a meeting with Desi about this, and their take was essentially The budget is what was voted at town meeting. So their advice was to move forward with what was voted at town meeting. Because the school committee didn't vote that number, we should vote it now. But, you know, if there was a mutual understanding between both the school committee and the town, we could use the lower number as well. So technically, we're entitled to, the school district is entitled to the higher number. That was what was voted at town meeting. It's to the tune of about $115,000.
That's correct.
But we could decide to use the number, the original number that we agreed on. So Aaron just needs some guidance so that he can go from there to kind of clean up the budget and have something presentable to start from for the FY26 budget.
And you're not revoting the budget at this moment, you're just
Just the
giving us
assessment.
direction. We will present something later, but it's more a matter of, does the school committee want to stand their ground on the higher number? Do you want to go with a lower number? Either's fine with us, and we can try to work with that as best we can.
And Megan captured the conversation we had with Desi really well, right? So we need to just make a decision so we can start planning ahead, right, and move forward.
So are there any consequences? Like if we had, let's say, in fact, Berlin voted for a number different from what the school committee voted that night. If we were back then in July or June, technically that's a fail. The budget failed, the assessment failed at town meeting. Are there any consequences if we choose to go with the number we originally agreed on?
But if it failed, if it's a higher amount?
This is my question.
Yeah.
Because at the original town meeting, had they voted a different number that was lower than the number the school committee put forward, the school committee could come back and vote to accept that lower number. Now that it went to the special town meeting, I don't believe that it has any language like that for after the second town meeting. This is the state regulation.
My understanding from the conversation we had with Jay Sullivan and Shell, right, was that it wasn't a fail, right? And that as long as we voted to take that higher number, we were completely within our authority to do so. That was my understanding from that conversation. I mean, essentially, the conversation was the town at Berlin screwed up. They should have put our number forth on the first town meeting. They should have put our number forth on the second town meeting. That stuff wasn't done properly on their part. But at this point in time, my understanding, or at least the takeaway I had from that conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, was that this would not be a fail, but the committee did need to go back and approve the number. Again, if we decided we wanted to go with a lower number, it would kind of be like a mutual understanding, because that's not the number that was voted at town meeting. But it's lower, so who's going to complain?
So was Berlin on the phone with Desi? I mean, who was on that call with Desi?
No.
But
I think they had a separate call with Desi.
Was Kim? Oh, they, okay. So was Berlin told that by Desi as well? Like,
so through the chair, Berlin initiated this conversation with the Department of Education.
Yeah.
And we were second to the conversation with them. So after we had a conversation with them, the Department of Education said that they were going to put forward, like, basically spell this all out in a letter to us. We have not received that letter just yet, or maybe we have.
We did.
Now, can you repeat that?
So when it was all done, the Department of Education said to us that they would spell this all out first in a finalized letter, not that first letter we got.
Yeah.
Basically saying that
Another letter.
What we have not received it. They basically said everything that Megan was talking about, they would put in writing first. So we're still waiting. And the one thing that Dan and I and Aaron asked is, obviously, that letter be sent to Berlin as well as school committee, so that everyone be aware, so we have a clean understanding of where we're going from here.
So effectively, Desi is saying we should accept the town's number. Is that what I'm hearing? They're encouraging us to vote on something in that.
We need to vote was what they
We
said.
need to vote on something, but they said the town's number would be in agreement.
Correct. They didn't really care what number we went with. They just were like, you need a number. The correct, my understanding was the proper, at this point, the proper way to follow the rules would be that the number that was voted at the town meeting should be the number that the district approves. Again, if we want to both kind of look the other way and say, all right, we all screwed up, we'll take, because,
Yeah, well,
you know,
have you talked to Berlin about that?
I have not. I don't know.
So two things. I think that the Department of Education is saying, you just need it clean. You need a number. What number are you working off? Are you working off this number? Are you working off that number? Because also, let's be clear, that affects the whole system as well, too, right? So the assessments, right? How that plays itself out. Aaron and I, for the first time, with Aaron, obviously in the meeting, have a meeting with Kristen tomorrow. I think it's noon time that we're going to be meeting with her, from Berlin, the town manager, so we'll see from there what takes place.
And so you are confident to tell us right now that if we voted to keep the number we originally voted on June 17th, that would not be considered a failure at town meeting, which would push us into a 112 budget with a December 1st deadline.
Yes. I'll make that leap. That was a message that we got from them. I have dealt with towns that voted a higher number and later had the second town vote a lower number, and we took the lower number despite the higher vote. And as long as that vote of the other town was higher, we can take the lower number.
So I know that's the case at the original town meeting. The way the language reads is very specific. Doesn't say anything about that after the special town meeting.
And it's verbal, like, that's nice that I said on the phone.
So-
It'd be really nice to have that in writing.
I don't disagree with, I
Yeah.
think, once we have everything written down and memorialized in that letter from the Department of Education, I think it'll be really good. And maybe also, Mike, that's a conversation now we have with Aaron, myself, and you, on a call with them as well, too. But
Regardless, whether it does become a fail or we just don't have an agreement on the number, and there's no time to do anything before December 1st.
Maybe do like a Zoom meeting, 5 minutes to take that vote.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, like, the next step would have been a district-wide meeting, another district-wide meeting.
Yeah.
With a warrant, 45 days notice, all that.
Yeah.
The gist of the conversation was protocol was not followed at all in this entire process, right? There were multiple broken, it wasn't just like, oh, you guys made this little mistake right here. It was, there were a lot of missteps taken in this process, in this, with the town of Berlin. Boylston was fine. So what they said is, you know, this is the way you can move forward while staying within the bounds of the law. And those were the two options they gave us. So they had said, you know, they didn't care what number we decided to go with. We could do either or. It's just, I think,
you need a number.
we need a number. And Aaron, you know, we've been asking, we want to know, what do we have for money? What can we do? Like, we've got all these expenses. And so I think the thing was, we said to him, you know, when are we going to get that budget, that cleaned up budget with all these, you know, changes that we've been asking for all summer and then all fall? And he said, well, I need the number to that. I can't give you a budget when I don't know what the bottom line is. So that's kind of where we are now. So we could push it off another month and wait. But go ahead. Oh, sorry.
But didn't we agree to that lower number under duress at the special town meeting? So I'm just wondering, like,
Yes,
shouldn't we
we
just
did.
go with the higher number?
Some people would claim that, yes.
What, also, was the information we were given that we had that money to take away? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, and that, yeah, we don't know. if we-
Correct information, or well,
Yeah.
questionably good information.
Agree, Jess. Yeah.
Do we know what that number was?
It was in the email. Did you send the email?
Yep, I do have the numbers.
Yes or no?
Yep, I do. Yes, I do know the numbers. I think Aaron does too.
So, personally, I would like to honor the agreement that we made with this finance committee and select board. We shook hands afterwards. I personally shook hands with them. We agreed to work together going forward. I don't know where that stands right now, but I would recommend, I'm not recommending anything, but I would like to honor the deal that we had that day. But it's not up to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it possible to do a vote, if we were to accept that lower number, with a caveat that says that we have to get verification from DESI stating that this is acceptable, you know, in writing. Therefore, it wouldn't hold it up if we decide to go that route.
Like
Sure, because that could
pending
Yes.
start working away, right?
confirmation.
And then if we do find out, well, I mean, if we find out from DESI that it technically becomes a fail, then I mean, it's over.
It's-
Right? It's-
yeah.
They've stepped in. We'll have to still come to agreement, so.
I didn't hear any time in those conversations in Megan Craig about it being a fail.
I mean, I'm using general
Sure.
language,
Yeah.
it's not technical language, basically what everybody understands, passing.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a number to vote on there, Aaron?
We're not looking, I guess are we looking at the lower or the higher? I mean, that's kind of the question.
Can we put a motion out there and then have that conversation too?
So the difference is what, 115,000?
Yeah, so the lower number would be an assessment of $8,326,194 to Berlin, and $13,037,301.48 to Boylston. We take the 301.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So is Boylston right now paying their assessment based on the higher number from Berlin?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Can you say the number again?
So we would, so the lower number I have from Dan is $8,326,194 to Berlin, $13,037,301 to Boylston.
And you said Boylston's paying according to the higher number?
They're paying according to a slightly higher number, yes. So what we would do is if the school committee voted this, we would just adjust their future assessments.
Higher or lower?
We'd adjust them lower, a little bit lower. So I think the net for Boylston would be about 52,000.
Yeah, so we had talked to Boylston about that, and they had said not to lower the assessment, but to keep it in the budget, because we knew we were gonna need.
Yeah, I mean, technically if we lower the assessment, so based on the way you guys are set up, right? So if Berlin lowers their assessment, there's a piece that comes out of Berlin Elementary School, of course, there's a piece that comes out of Tohoto and the central office collectively. If we reduce the overall assessment, Boylston assessment is going to have to go down by the Tohoto and central office number. Their elementary would still stay the same, right, because of that whole formula. So the formula is a little wonky, so as we know, it is what it is. So Berlin would bear the bulk of the reductions through the elementary school. So you'd be looking at a $116,000 reduction to Berlin and about a $52,684 reduction to Boylston.
How have you been operating this year, based on what number?
We've been operating on a bit of a higher number, and that's what's in the books.
Can you survive the rest of the year as is, if we went with the lower?
I mean, there's a couple options. We could look at revenues and whether typically when you create a budget, they're based on the governor's revenue estimates, and those change throughout the process. So there may be an ability to bring, Chapter 70 went up a little bit. We can look at whether those revenues would support sustaining the budget at that reduced amount. So that's kind of why we're looking for the direction. Can we work one way or the other and make things work on behalf of the committee?
But to answer your question, if we're making those adjustments, we need to start now, right? It's like trying to move a cruise ship, right? It's not a speedboat. It's like we got to move slowly to make all these adjustments.
So is it? I don't know what I should ask.
Is it cuts?
Thank you.
Personnel?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about,
Yes.
voting to the lower one?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make cuts this late in the game to personnel. We might look at positions that are unfilled, things like that, where things are. But
That's
I think the first thing we look at is there something that will help fill the gaps?
when we made that decision to throw in, what, $150 extra $1,000 at the end, what fund was it out of? Do we
No, that's what, I think that's, it was a cluster. There was no specifics on that. We were just said, well, we can find the money. So I don't think he had, I had been asking all summer for a report on that. After we had that vote and the town meeting happened, I had been asking, at the time TMS was running the finances, and I had asked all summer long, I'm like, give me a report. You said this, we were gonna cut this, let's see the report. Where's the budget? We gotta look at the budget. We gotta see, like, where are we now? What are we cutting? What's going on? And we didn't get anything. And then come to find out, like, they just didn't do it. And then come to find out, well, the assessment calculation was wrong. And then come to find out, like, Dan and Aaron are coming in there trying to piece everything back together. So that's kind of where we are right now. So I don't think there's any specific details. I think he's going to kind of try to back into the details. So this is like one of those really hard votes where you're kind of like trying. We don't know specifically what would be cut or if we need to cut anything, but we know that something. It's got to come from somewhere.
Can we rob from Peter?
Right, exactly. And so it's such a difficult decision.
Can I ask a question? I just want to make sure I understand this. So I know that obviously Berlin Elementary will get the brunt of it. How does it affect Tohoto too? Because you did say that if the assessment goes down, then it goes down in Boylston as well. How much are we cutting from Tohoto?
So between Tohoto and, I'm imagining that the bulk of the reduction to Boylston is going to be through Tohoto and central office, which would be that sort of 52,600.
Would be that number, okay.
Yeah.
And what was the amount again?
I'm sorry, the amount,
For the Berlin, the amount.
It's 116,000.
116,000 in Berlin, yeah, almost 116,000 even.
I just want to be careful of the numbers, right? So there's some variability there, right? So I know that sometimes it gets in the public record that it was 36 cents, right? I want to make sure that we're still, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it hurts me more, but it deal's a deal.
I wasn't present for the negotiations, but I feel like to not go for the lower amount is starting off the whole budget season on a really bad page. We had an agreement. We're turning a new page. We're moving forward. I don't want to start with double back on this again, third year in a row. I think it's better to go with a little.
Yeah, deal's a deal.
I don't disagree. I just want to make sure our students aren't going to, or our staff especially, I want to make sure that the students and the staff are protected.
Can I ask if we are able to, and we see the revenues that would support maintaining the budget of other assessments with the school, the amount of that? So, I think I did say that Chapter 70 came in a little higher than the governor had initially proposed. There are a few things we can look at. Sometimes revenues go down in some categories. I've seen transportation reimbursement go down, things like that. But, if we look at every possible kind of gap filler with the community, I look at that.
How long would you need to do that?
I'd say give us a month. At least report back with them. We can report back to the next school committee meeting.
And then that month, we'll have a letter from a clear direction from Department of Education. We're meeting with Kristen tomorrow from Berlin as well too, so that might have some information as well too.
How much does that hold you up from getting FY26 going?
It really doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to try to run them in parallel. I'm kind of, asking Dan to kind of take on the bulk of this while I work on the 26 budget.
I mean,
But I'll work together on this.
taking a little bit more time to get some more specifics seems to make sense, but I would suggest maybe operating under the assumption that it's the lower number.
Okay.
Because that's worst case scenario. Is everybody good with waiting for the details? And the letter?
Yeah, we can't make decisions in a silo. I think talking to Berlin tomorrow is really important. And to get that in writing, that we're legally within.
Let's start pursuing the lower number now.
Yeah, I just think,
It's easier to add than take away.
yeah, I think the big thing though is, we had met with the town of Boylston did work with the committee and did fund the budget, and I think that, you know, their last words when they were leaving was, do not use our money to fund those gaps in Berlin. So as long as we're not taking, like, we had our school choice by school, so as long, you know, we kind of have those I know it's not documented great, but we did have the school choice funds were by school, so we had like 3 separate balances. So I think as long as we're not taking funds from Boylston, like that you said, have the excess to kind of like fill gaps for the cuts that might have to be made, because, you know, Boylston has kind of pushed through, and the taxes in Boylston are higher, and so we don't want to, I think if you can find it elsewhere, that's great. Like, I think if there's other things that you can move around, like you said, stuff that might not be needed, then that's great. But I think that you can't just take money that, you know, inequitably from Boylston and apply it over to Berlin to fill the gap.
That won't be the intent. I'll
Yeah.
try to honor the regional agreement.
When do we know Chapter 71 reimbursement or fund?
Say again?
When do we know Chapter 71 reimbursement or fund? Like, do we have an idea of how much?
Chapter 71.
That's what you said.
So that's transportation reimbursement. So all of those items, you know, come through the whole governor's budget process. I would have to look at what came through the governor's budget. Then you've got the House Ways and Means, you've got the Senate budget, then they have a reconciliation. So somewhere over the summer, there were final numbers that would have come out compared to the very first numbers. I have to look at what numbers were used and try to figure out what differential it was.
And just one final thing, I just want to make sure we're clear. There's not like an excess here, right? So this is going to be some work that we're going to have to do in this office to make sure, right? And the other thing I just want clarity on is we're not going to reduce our staffing. That'll be the absolute last thing we're doing.
Yeah.
That's not where we're at with this at all. We're not in that panic mode yet for this amount of money. But do we have to tighten some purse strings here and there? Absolutely, we're going to have to look at that. But I just don't want anyone to think, A, that we have a free flow of cash going, and it's no big deal, because it is going to be hard for us to make these moves. And the second thing is we're not going to look at cutting any staff, obviously.
Does not taking a vote tonight put you behind in any way the work you need to do?
So to give us direction to pursue an avenue, I don't believe takes a vote of the committee. If the consensus of the committee is that we should start pursuing the lower number, the reason we kind of wanted to put a vote on this is if the school committee wanted to make it official of their own accord. I'm comfortable following the consensus decision, unless I'm wrong, seems to be to try to start working with a lower number. We'll work with a lower number, and if something changes, we'll let you all know and go from there.
And Megan summed it up nicely, like the Department of Education really said, we don't really care which avenue you go, you just need a number. You need to clarify what number you're using, so that we have it in our books as well, too.
So we definitely do need to vote. We don't need to vote tonight. It would be
Eventually,
really,
you will have to.
Yeah, we absolutely
I
have
would
to
to.
give us direction to
vote by
pursue.
December 1st.
I think
I'm sorry, I didn't hear,
he thinks we need to vote by December 21st. I think
Isn't it
this was
drop
something we were
dead
supposed to do in October.
date? December 1st is a drop dead date for school board next, isn't it?
Well, I don't think they're envisioning putting us into a 112 budget kind of scenario. I think they're accepting that we have something, we just need to define it.
I'd be a lot more comfortable if I said that, right?
But, right.
I would, so that was the last thing I said on that
I
meeting, is
know,
I want it in writing.
I know.
I don't want any more folklore. I want it in writing so that I can show school committee, I can show Berlin, and I can show Wilson.
Yeah, then they did come up with that letter. We all read the letter, right? It was kind of like, clean your act up, we got to follow the law, but it was not specific to this situation. It didn't address this specific situation. So,
And I will have myself, Dean and Aaron, try to get a call with them to see like exactly where they are with that letter.
Because we have our as-needed meeting scheduled for the 26th.
yeah.
We could do a 5-minute Zoom to do a vote before the holidays and before.
Good.
Just, you need finality, we need finality. You need to get the work done. You're going to do the work assuming that's the way we're going to do it, better way. But you need to start having a conversation on the downs. So,
In particular, if it's going, you're thinking about going the other direction, right? We need to have conversations with both Berlin and Boston. So it's just there's some legwork to do it, and we really need it done to base it analysis.
Yeah, all right, do the work on the lower number, assuming, and we will see if we can follow up with Desi, get something, and possibly have a Zoom on the 26th. All right.
It would be helpful to see, I agree, it would be helpful to see the detail, if we go with the lower number, what does that look like from a, not,
Yeah, if you
like,
give us an
like,
idea of your plan.
the cost center, like, we need to see the budget, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, it's
Completely
just like,
agree.
all right, we're, you wanna go with
We
this
do
lower
too.
number, but if it means like,
Yeah.
oh, look at this gaping
Yeah,
hole.
we need to know what it is.
We really.
Yeah, I know, we gotta, like
That's
you
part of
said,
the
so
problem.
I wanna, at this point, I feel like personally, I wanna see what the heck's going on with this money before I make a vote.
And just know, each day, we're uncovering different things with this budget that we're trying to capture and
Right, right,
figure
right.
out. Every day, there's something new. Okay.
All right.
How are we doing for minutes?
I'm good.
So I was going to say, Mr. Chair, can we pause now and see if I can get the live stream, because I got parts driven over.
Perfect.
Yeah, so let's take a, 5 minutes?
Sure.
5-minute recess.